Hello, puppies and kittens. Once again, we have assembled a group of people who are familiar with, raised in Islam and who speak Arabic. Most of them meet both of those criteria at least. And they'll be talking about today Surah 17. This is known as the night journey. This is the bit that I've been waiting for quite some time. This is where Muhammad flew on a winged beast of some sort. Many people equate that to a horse. It was supposed to be horse-like, but not quite a horse somehow. But anyway, he flew a horse at least 150 miles an hour to Jerusalem and then to heaven. We don't know how long that took, or how far away that is, or if it's closer to Jerusalem. I think that would be amusing. Is heaven closer to Jerusalem than it is to Mecca? Anyway, guys, I'm going to let you take it away. Who wants to begin?
It's up to you. You can have the opening salvo if you want, because I am going in thematically most of the time, and unfortunately, this surah doesn't say what it wants to say. There is only one verse in the surah that talks about the journey, and the rest of it is just fluff. So
it's fluff that kind of refers to that opening comment, and this is what's so confusing about that.
Yes.
Why would you have the whole rest of the chapter that make references to and the visions that Muhammad saw? You didn't explain what any of that was. Why is it that we have to wait for somebody else? And this is the thing that really gets me about the Quran.
Right.
It didn't say dick about how Muhammad went there. Right. Just
right.
One night he goes all the way.
Describe the Burak. Like, give me 3 verses. Tell me the Burak looks like that.
Yeah.
Right.
So we have some other guy who wasn't there listening to Gabriel. So God does this telephone game where he talks to his angel, who sends his angel down to talk to the illiterate guy, who then has to talk to the guy who knows how to read, who can write. And then that gets passed down to subsequent editors, obviously. And then it gets on to some uncertain number of hadiths. Like, who gave the guys writing the hadiths, who gave them authority? How the hell did they know that the Burak was even involved?
Right, because
it could have been a hypertrain from what
we don't know if it was the Burak. Like, from this surah, verse 1, Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi layla min al-masjid al-haram min al-masjid al-aqsa. It doesn't even say Jerusalem.
Really?
Just to plunk the plunker down, the Masjid al-Haram and the Masjid al-Aqsa are not geographical locations as they are.
So what is it? What is the Quran saying then?
The Quran says, exalted who has night traveled his slaves, because he used the word slave, from the Masjid al-Haram, which is supposed to be al-Kaaba, which is supposed to be in Mecca, but that's just, we understand that. Al-Masjid al-Aqsa, the Masjid al-Aqsa means the far away mosque, which we just interpret as Jerusalem. The Jerusalem Tabernacle, if you want to be very precise about it. The Masjid al-Aqsa wasn't even built until the Muslims conquered and occupied Jerusalem. Then they built that building. That is the spark point of all conflict these days.
So where else could it have been talking about? If it's written in the 7th century, what would someone in that area might have thought if they said to the other mosque?
Okay, so there are a few points about this. The first one is that the surah, it doesn't mention the story itself, because the surah goes in a way, it's a way of Muhammad saying, hey, I've told you the story, and look, my God is even saying the same things. So it was kind of like an affirmation. He's trying to affirm that his story is true, that whatever he told them is also God telling him again. So he was trying to be like, remember the shit that I told you? Look, my God is telling you the same stuff, so it must be true.
Yeah, but this verse is so vague, he might be doing something else.
Exactly, which is a point I'm going to get to.
This could have been a teleportation to heaven via the Jerusalem port.
Yeah, technically, in a way, yes, but like there are already, like right now, there was an Egyptian guy a few years ago who was saying Al Masjid Al Aqsa is a spot in Ta'if, which is a town just like if less than 100 miles away from Mecca. But yeah, like the only way we know, quote
Did
unquote,
he
know.
survive that? Did he survive
He's
that?
a very controversial person. I'm not sure exactly
Okay.
what evidence he used to come up with that. To be honest, I just remember that he came up with that like notion. But yeah,
Mhm.
like the only way we quote unquote know that this verse is talking about Mecca and Jerusalem is from the other narrations of Hadith or other stories.
Right, right. So
Yeah,
not
yeah,
from here.
it's not from
Yeah,
the Quran.
no.
But the point is, the Quran is kind of preserved and moved to us in a very similar way to what Hadith did and went through.
Mhm.
And so, like, to Muslims, the high levels of Hadith, like the Hadith that are Sahih, Mutawatir, are considered to be like very, very close, not equal, but very close to Quran in authenticity.
Yeah,
Again,
but under
this is
any,
the
but under
Islamic,
any
yeah, the Islamic point
like
of view.
under any circumstances, when you take the hadith and when you take the Quran trumps the hadith every time.
Yes,
It's
yeah, yeah,
just
yeah.
like a rock scissors, what is it, paper game. Whenever you have a hadith and somebody brings up a Quran, that Quran trumps it. That's it, right?
Mhm.
So if you say in the hadith that the name of the whatever animal that Muhammad wrote was Burak, I can always say, good. Can you show me the verse in the Quran that confirms that? And then you will have to decline because there is no verse in the Quran that says, well, it was this Dabba that is called Al Burak, right?
But that's why Islam is not just built on the Quran alone. It's built on the Quran, the Hadith, and all the myths that surrounded the time. And I think the only reason Muhammad again put in this verse or talking about this verse is actually explained in the next verse when he's talking about the Bani Israel, the Israelite, that he's trying to build a connection to to the Jewish people and to the Israelite, that they come from the same stock, they are the same people. That's why he traveled there. It's not because it's holier or closer, it's just to make a connection that, oh wait, we still worship the same guy, we have the same religion, but you did the wrong thing, so you need to be corrected again.
I think
Right.
there is a
So
point. There is also like a point that Muslims come up with it from another point, which is the mental status of Muhammad when he wrote this chapter, according to the story again. So, like,
was he high on something?
not just that, it's like the progress of his story. So, like the last surah we discussed, there was a verse that says, do not seek forgiveness for the and like for the kafirs, do not like send mercies upon them, which was in reference to his recently deceased uncle who helped him but died a kafir, and therefore God was like, no, he's going to hell.
Oh,
And
okay.
before this chapter, also his trusted wife died. This is the story that we're Muslims telling. And so, like, the whole journey was supposedly God trying to elevate Muhammad's spirits and
Yeah,
give him
but
like,
I think Khadija died in Medina, no?
no,
No,
Khadija, like,
Mecca.
Khadija died in Mecca, and like she's said to have died. Her and Abu Talib both died before this journey. And so the way I see it is that Muhammad was so distraught. He lost his wife, who was like his main supporter and like probably a much bigger figure in Islam than we like see right now in the texts. He lost his uncle, who was his support and his protection, and therefore he needed to like to be like, oh no, you guys think you've taken me? No, I'm gonna go even higher. You think like you've, and so he was like, yeah, I went. You took like my uncle is gone. I went to heaven, bitches.
So
I went to know God.
he went for the shrooms then.
Yeah. Which like I read Aaron's blog, and he mentioned it as a psychoactive kind of trip, and it does seem like it.
You gotta have to be tripping to make shit up like that. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Like this is the reflection in the Quran, and I just pointed out how inconclusive this one verse is. Like we don't know that the Masjid al-Haram is in Mecca, right? Where Muhammad is supposed to be. We just assume that he just walked out of his house and found this Burak park in front of his house, right?
According to the Hadith, he was woken up from his sleep.
Well, right. So even worse than that, he just got up from bed, and Gabriel was standing there. Hey, let's go. We got a party in Jerusalem. We need the flight to catch, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
We can't miss that flight to heaven. So let's go. I've got a special ride for. I've got a special ride for you. There is your ride. Look at it. It's beautiful.
There's another line. There's another line in the surah that leads me, and I don't know if you've got it in your notes, but later on, there's another line that implies to me that these images or these visions that we've shown him, that Muhammad is having a dream, and that's it.
So this is most certainly not a dream. And then Ibn Kathir clarifies this in his tafsir, that this is a physical journey, because God uses Subhanallah in the Quran. So you wouldn't say something like praise be to the Lord if it's just a dream. And there's multiple reasons that Ibn Kathir gives of why this is an actual physical journey and not a dream.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just one more point about the Hadith, right? And like Mubarak said, that Islam is to be understood in the light of Quran, Hadith, and the Sunnah of the Prophet. And I know that some people think the way Burhaz is thinking about Quran being the paramount and everything else being just human-made. And there are Quran-only Muslims as well, which is a very tiny minority.
Oh yes, I'm aware of the Quranics. I'm not saying that we should all do exactly that. I know they're a tiny minority, but I'm driving the point that once you start arguing Hadith with somebody, the time of the world is not enough to finish the argument. Right? That's such the bifurcating tree into nothingness. So that's why I'm trying to, okay, let's stay with the Quran. Let's break or make the argument with the Quran or not. And let's not bring 75 hadiths into the table and then nobody knows where the heck we're going with it.
But it's not 75 hadiths. It's some uncertain number that is thousands or tens of thousands. So how do you know even how many? If you don't know how many
there
are?
I'm just talking about the one subject that we're discussing. Let's discuss the journey, and then let's bring 75 hadiths that are directly concerned with this journey, and then our table is full all over the place with hadiths, and we don't know what we're talking about.
But they all are saying the same general thing, is what I'm saying. So the way it works is, even if
which is a problem, because the Quran doesn't say any of the same general thing.
That's correct. Yeah.
Right. Like sure, the hadith agrees that Muhammad split the moon.
Yeah.
None of them is true, because the moon isn't split. You can bring me all the authentic hadith in the world, and I'm going to say, well, where is the break in the moon?
Well, maybe Muhammad looked at it when it was a half moon and just never noticed that the moon has phases before. And then,
Aaron, the hadith is literally, he looked at the moon, split it in half. One half was over this mountain, the other half was over that mountain. He moved them the distance that the pieces of moon had to travel astronomically, so that from a vantage point on Earth, the two halves were were so split apart that they were over two distinct different peaks. It's just unimaginable that nobody else saw it on Earth.
Yeah, I imagine every surfer in the world immediately noticed.
Mm-hmm. Like the Chinese would have had records about this. January 2011, their calendar, because they were running a calendar 4,000 years old. January 2011, the moon was broken in half. The next day, the moon is okay. I don't know what happened yesterday. We would find it in the Chinese books of astronomy, because they kept a log.
All over the world,
They would keep a log. But
imagine even Arab tribes in Arabia looking at night, seeing the moon split, And they'd be
Right.
going all around like, guys, did you hear about the moon splitting? Do you know what that is about? And when
Right.
they hear that there is this guy in Mecca who's responsible about splitting the moon, everyone would have
Yes.
joined them.
Here's a sideways look at.
We are
Here's a
talking about the wrong
slightly.
surah.
Right.
Yeah, we went down another.
I just
Here is a sideways look at this. It's a little bit sideways, but I think it's to the point. This surah uses the word Isra, right? Which is a specific word in Arabic for traveling at night, Aaron.
Yep.
There's a word in Arabic for traveling at night, and there's a word for normal traveling. That's during the day. Okay? It uses the specific word of traveling at night. So that's why we know it's a night journey. Not because any of this stuff said it was 8:30 in the evening.
Well, I mean, the Hadith makes it clear as well. I mean, so for example, some of the people in the Quraysh in the tribe, they went to Abu Bakr actually after Muhammad claimed this, and then they were skeptical about this, obviously, and they said, "Have you heard what your companion is saying? He claims that he went to Baitul Maqdis and returned back in one night." And then
Yes.
Abu Bakr says that, "Did he really say that?" And then they said yes. And then Abu Bakr just says that, "Then I bear witness that he actually did that." So I mean, he didn't even demand any evidence at this point. So
Well,
he just
he
said that
wasn't skeptical enough then.
if
That's what we
no, the
call-
people of the Quraysh were skeptical about this, and they even asked him like, "Did you go to Baitul Maqdis?" And then he says yes, and then they say, "But yet here you are in the morning over here with us," and they couldn't understand.
I would definitely ask for where did he get the cart he was chewing last night.
You know, I actually, now reading the Quran again, I actually have more respect for the Qurayshi people. They are the skeptic that I don't know why I didn't notice that. They always call him on his bullshit. They know, like, dude, no one travels from Mecca to Jerusalem that fast. Like, you're just hallucinating. And they keep telling him that he's either a witch or something, like have witchcraft, or he's a liar or a poet, and whatever claims they tell him. But it's true, he is. And then they claim, if we die and become bone and dust, are we gonna rise again? So they actually know, and they have legit argument against his claims, and he doesn't give answers. So from the beginning, Islam did not come with any answer for any question you could ask. So
I fully agree. I fully agree. I always, like I've been saying for a while, that even though we only hear the arguments of Qurayshis from the way that Muslims narrate it, the way Muslims tell us what Qurayshis did and what they said, and you still look at it and you're like, they're kind of reasonable. They're kind of the reasonable people. Like later in this surah, they'll be going around asking Muhammad, like, "Hey, you're making these weird ass claims. Give us something to prove that you're actually a prophet. Like, start a stream, climb into the heaven, or you claim that you're gonna drop the sky on us. Do it. Show us. Like, yeah, we're
Right.
calling your bluff. Show it.
Right.
Show it."
This is akin. The amount of fluff around this is akin to the resurrection of Jesus. The empty tomb stuff, and the only possible solution is that he resurrected and rose to heaven, and blah blah blah. It's all made up shit.
Well, he had the Barak, except that it showed up at night whenever.
Well, nobody saw the Barak.
Nobody saw it. So you have this fantastic beast that's vaguely horse-like, except that it has a handsome face, whatever the hell that means. And then,
Like mine, right?
oh yeah, except that
Handsome face.
they chose to interpret handsome as meaning a human female. So if you say that it has a handsome face, it means it has a human female face. That was an interesting depiction with wings in its thighs. And that was another thing that threw me about the depiction, because they always put the wings where wings would logically supposed to be.
But it would then get if they put the wings where they're supposed to be, they will get in the way of riding the thing, because then they'll be flapping against your legs all the way. So
I don't know that they even flap, because why would they have to? Because the description
I don't know.
the description he gives, or the hadiths give, for how this thing moves so fast, is that it just puts its foot not right in front of it. It puts its foot on the
Where as far as it can see, because you can see 5 kilometers ahead of you, because horizon.
So that's why there's no
because
evidence.
the Earth is not flat, despite of all the theories saying it is.
You get one hoof print every 20 miles with this thing.
Yep. Yep.
How do you get authority to do hadith? I mean, so like somebody has a fever dream, or has some bad meat, and then they write a story, and then it becomes a hadith. How does it?
No.
So,
Well,
supposedly it was just
yeah.
like the Quran, but so the hadith is just whatever people say Muhammad said or did, but that is outside of the Quran.
Right.
Well,
So
I-
what happens is because the hadith was only collected hundreds of years after Muhammad died, the way you do hadith is that you say person A told person B, who told person C that Muhammad said this and this and this. Okay, this is how it gets written down in the books of hadith today. So person A,
there's a whole system about like grading persons A, B, and C as to how trustworthy
Right.
they are.
right? They didn't pay, they didn't tip at the bar, all that stuff. It gets into calculations, and then they say, well, that hadith is more likely to be true than the other 7 ones.
Okay, so we have the authority of being somebody told somebody that this guy 100 years earlier said this thing that guy can't possibly know. And who is the guy 100 years earlier? He's the one desert weirdo who says that he's talking to an angel who's
Right.
talking from God.
It is just like the stoning verses for adultery, right? The stoning verses are missing in the Quran. They're not there. Khadija swears that she had them written down under her bed and the goat ate it. That's the only reference we have for these verses. And you know what? We stone people today for adultery, okay? But this is Khadija, who is the youngest wife of Muhammad.
Aisha.
Well,
Aisha.
Aisha, sorry, Aisha. And on her word, which we didn't hear, and those who wrote her word down didn't hear either, because somebody else had to tell that she said that. Okay,
Aisha, that's the, what was that?
that's the 7-year-old. Yeah,
who wanted
yeah.
to marry
that's the
Muhammad so she'd have someone to grow up with,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, no,
as opposed to grow old with.
no, yes.
I mean, if the Burak, by the way, was funny enough for you, it says in one of the hadiths is that once he tied the Burak in Jerusalem, a ladder came down onto him, which he climbed to the 7 heavens. Do you know that Miraj actually means a ladder, right?
I'm
No,
not
I
sure
did not
about
know
that
that.
narration, Master.
I'm not sure of the Miraj meaning ladder.
Okay.
Or the latter
But,
story, to be honest. Yeah.
I
but you
would
do
take
know
it.
it exists.
I would take
mean,
it as the root word of araja, which means to bend, to change your direction. Right?
Okay.
So he went to the Jerusalem and then changed his direction and went up.
Also, also the word ma'arij means like araja also can mean to climb up or to go up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you have to go up to heavens.
In my
I mean-
book, I made the joke that that maybe heaven was only as far away as the elevator to the observation deck of the Burj Khalifa.
Which
very
is a
possibly.
good reference.
Very possibly,
Yeah.
because Muhammad thought that jinnis climbed on top of each other so that they can reach to the heaven and listen in to what angels are saying, and then come down and tell witches, and that's how like divination works. Because from
Yeah,
those
but the
little bits of
goddamn
news-
angels were throwing stars at them.
Oh yeah, that's what shooting
Yeah.
stars come from.
Yes.
But yeah, like the bird, like the sky that Muhammad envisioned was a ceiling, a firm ceiling that's on top of us, with levels of ceilings on top of it, that each constitute a level of the heaven, 7 in
Yeah.
total.
Yes.
Yeah, and each
You
one has a
definitely-
gate, right? Which opens.
Yeah.
Yep, each one has a gate that you need to knock on.
Anyone
like-
seen Spaceballs, where they suck the air out of the planet, but they have to open the shield door to be able to suck the air out of it? Something like that. Is that what you're talking about?
Oh,
So one of the funny things that I came across was that the hadith is so repetitive. So, for example, when he arrives at the first gate, then they knock on the door, and then they say, "Who is it?" And then he says, "I'm Jibril." And who is this with you? And he says, "This is Muhammad." And then they ask him, like, "Has his mission started?" And then he says, "Yes." And then they open the door, and then at first heaven, I think it's who is it? Adam. Adam is on the first heaven who welcomes him. And then they do the same process at every door. Like, who is it? And then he says, Jibril, who is this with you? I mean, I would
The
think
hadith
like
is
they
not
would have
even-
better,
Go ahead.
I would think they would have better coordination, at least if someone is coming up towards
Like,
God, right?
yeah, like a proper password or something.
Yeah, they didn't
You know.
they didn't envision the internet or that people can communicate with each other without having
Yeah,
to be
like a
present.
number pad or a biometric stuff, you know. You have to peek into the thing and then it scans your retina and says, okay, you're Muhammad, you go.
The hadith is not even consistent as to what heaven has which prophets, because like he meets Moses, I think on the 4th or the 5th when he's going up, but when he's going down, Moses is either like in this, I think it's in
Well,
the
of
7th
course
or
they
the
can't.
6th.
Bogey, let him finish the thought.
Oh, sorry, okay.
So like part of the story is that Muhammad keeps going back and up with God to argue and bargain for like the number of prayers that Muslims have to do, and he keeps doing that between him and Moses. And the hadith itself is not consistent as to where Moses is, to the point that people reading it are like, oh yeah, maybe after Muhammad went up to meet with God, Moses changed heavens as well. Like he was trying to tell this fantastical story of his psychedelic trip, but he couldn't keep the info straight. He couldn't keep like even like the narration straight. And
Well, either he couldn't or the people who made it up couldn't keep it
exactly,
straight.
that's what I was gonna get at. Like we cannot really know if the mistake came from the original source or from somewhere along the telephone path of narrations. Which which is very, very frustrating. If I could just end with this point, it is very frustrating to deal with hadith because, like we said, it was only recorded hundreds of years after Muhammad died, and those people decided if the people who came before them were trustworthy or not.
Yeah.
So, like, it can be a hadith with like A told B told C that Muhammad said this, and then person G comes in like 300 years later and be like, oh, someone told me that person C is not reliable, and therefore this hadith is not reliable. It's out.
Yeah. You know what? I think it's one of those miracle of the Quran that the Quran could combine so much bullshit in one sentence. And we still at the first verse of this surah, and there's so much bullshit to cut through.
Yeah, the thing is, I think it's worse, this discussion about this is what's in the Quran. It doesn't even say Jerusalem. It doesn't say Burak. It doesn't say 7 heavens. Okay, it says them later in the surah, fine. And like the amount of information here is nothing compared to what's in the hadith. And the hadith is not consistent. So that's a clear like indication that some people are making some stuff up and they have different variants of it. Because if there was a truth to it, there would be a convergence on that truth. And there is no convergence.
Yes.
And I think it's a very worthy topic because pretty much this surah is why Muslims are obsessed with Jerusalem.
Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like there is no connection between Muslims and Jerusalem during the time of Muhammad other than they prayed to it before they prayed to Mecca, and Muhammad visited it on this trip, supposedly.
Well,
This
and
verse,
they've got
this
Moses.
no,
That-
this one verse establishes a geographical land claim inside Jerusalem. This one verse is the cause of the Arab Jewish wars.
which never even
It's one
says-
of the it's one of the reasons because according to this, like according to the journey or to the hadith, now we're gonna skip like the limited text of the Quran, is that when Muhammad went to Jerusalem, in the place where it's now like Al Masjid Al Aqsa, he led a prayer with all the prophets from before. All the prophets were there in Jerusalem waiting for him, And when he arrived, he led the prayer with all of them. And so Muslims take it as that was the time that God was like, okay, all of you guys are out. This is the new guy. Everyone should follow this guy. This is the person who's gonna rule over the earth. This is like the Muslim perspective as to what this means.
And of course the Jews weren't having none of
Yeah,
it.
and the Jews look at the same spot, they call it the Temple Mount, and they're like, we built a temple here a couple of thousand years ago, and we want it back. Muslims are like, hey, we came here like 1300 years ago and built a mosque then, that's now still here, and we want in, and this is like our prophet rules over your prophet because he came later. And according to Muslims, Muslims are following the true doctrine of Moses that Jews supposedly corrupted, and now they're following the corrupt one. So that is like the Muslim perspective on why Jerusalem is so important, so central, not to be given up under any circumstances. Of course, it complicates it that Jews think a very similar thing, like at least like the,
Right.
that devout ones.
I've often
Right.
commented that of the Abrahamic religions, this God of peace and of love, right? That all of three of the big three religions that are based on this have been at war with each other each since their inception.
Yeah,
Not necessarily. They were competitive for each other, yes. But look at stuff like this and you realize, no, they were driven to war because of their own edicts.
Whatever.
Yeah,
God didn't stop it. God didn't make peace and love
God-
between all
yeah.
three.
No, God doesn't know how real estate works either.
No, he sells the same land twice, or more than actually twice,
Right.
to different people on different time. He should be taken to court and sued for fraud, to be honest.
Right. And then looks at all the mess he created and does not fix it. While he could say, hey, late edict number 77, share it amongst each other without fighting. How about that? No, that's not happening.
No, it's not going to work because none of these religions are working towards ending the war. They're all they're all working towards winning the war. Like they're all working towards, no, I'm not trying to like live peacefully with you. No, I'm trying to dominate you. That is my point. That is my end goal.
Right.
And so yeah, they're not going to live harmonically with each other.
Yeah. So why would a Muslim concede a point when their prophet was praying in front of the other prophets in Jerusalem? How on earth do you expect him to concede the point?
Mm-hmm.
No, for whatever reason, I can't get a believing Muslim to get in these discussions. Can't imagine why. But I mean, for any of you guys here, do you remember being a believer and thinking that any of this made sense?
So I think so 3 points I have here, right? So regarding the people might not wanting to come to talk about this is because we are working in completely different frameworks, right? So for example, if you see the first chapter of the Quran itself, I mean, it says that this is the book that's been revealed for the true believers, and the belief is a presupposition, and that's what I feel when I read the Quran, right? That those people who are misguided will not find the benefits in this. So now they're working in a framework where
you're talking about the first chapter as in bookwise, right?
Yes, bookwise, yeah. So
because the first chapter is Iqra, time-wise.
Correct, not chronologically. The first chapter as it is in the Quran. So so the frameworks are different. So for example, let's say this topic of that we're discussing of the Buraq and the night journey, it's sufficient for Muslims to believe that this was a miracle. We don't know how it happened, but we trust Muhammad as the messenger of God, and then we just know that it's a miracle. It's outside the materialistic or the methodological naturalistic worldview that you have, and which is why you'll see the Muslim apologist usually trying to question the methodologies themselves. Like, why do you trust Quran? Why do you trust the science? Or, why do you trust philosophy? I mean, you have to make assumptions. So reality itself is not reality, and they start to question those things. So we're working in completely different frameworks, and it's sufficient for them to believe that this was just a miracle and move on. Second point was the point about Moses, the prophet coming back, and every time he comes back, Moses says that your people won't be able to handle so many prayers. That's 50 that God demanded, and then he kept going back to God to negotiate, and then he came down with 5. As when we were growing up as kids, we were made to feel really guilty all the time about this one, in almost every other sermon, where it was so difficult. That it was 50. Imagine that now you only have to do 5 and you couldn't even do that. Such a shame. And then you're supposed to make it's supposed to make you feel like Muhammad did such a big favor on you by reducing it 10 times, and you couldn't even do the 5 times. So you were trying to guilt people into praying.
Yeah,
So
and the Burak has a passenger count of 1, so nobody can go back and haggle a little bit more.
Correct. And then secondly, I think there is also the fact that Muhammad came back from the Miraj, and all the prophets prayed 2 rakah namaz or salah in the mosque over there, and he was leading the prayers. So he led the prayers for all the prophets. I think this was one of his ways of establishing authority in front of the Quraysh. But clearly they didn't believe it. A lot of them didn't believe it.
Right. And the other thing is, like, when you read hadith with stories like this, and you know the historic reference that when Muslims entered Jerusalem about 30 years later, probably more or less, right? They actually went to the place and prayed there, right? And according to historic reference, the Jews of the town weren't sure what the heck is going on. So they definitely didn't see the visit by Muhammad with the Burak and the ascension part while it was claimed to have happened. So nobody saw it in Jerusalem either.
At the same time, we know historically that the temple had already been destroyed, and the Temple Mount was actually a collection of garbage that a disgrace of a place that the Roman kept after they kicked the Jews out of Jerusalem, because it's one way to rub it in their face by just destroying their holy of holy and use it as a landfill or something for their garbage. So I'm thinking Muhammad had prayed in a garbage pile, and then the Muslim went in again and prayed again in that garbage pile before they cleaned it and built their mosque in, which is very ridiculous when you know that how Muslims pray and they bow down. So I will just leave the image there when you're standing on garbage pile and praying down and bowing down. I don't know how they did it.
Actually, the argument for Muhammad praying in the middle of a garbage pile, I remember having that argument, like hearing that argument when I was back a Muslim. Like, which was one was making the argument that probably this whole trip was just in spirit, not just in body, because like of all the things that happen around it, like maybe it was just like his spirit that went, not his body. And one of the arguments that they were bringing was that when Muslims came into Jerusalem later, they found out that it had, like, the area was turned into a garbage dump, and so the prophets and the Muhammad leading the prayer couldn't have happened there.
He should have downloaded the new maps to his GPS before he started the journey.
I'm wondering, is he using the same GPS that Moses used? Because that
probably
did not work.
Probably not. That did not work for sure.
Hey,
he probably got a newer one.
if we're gonna trust the narration, then like it's a much improved one. He got there in one night instead of over 40 years.
Yeah, that's when he converted from Allah maps.
He's got a good travel agent for sure.
Are we still on the first verse?
No, I think we can move on from there. The first verse has no meat on it, but there is an hour worth of discussion on this subject if you like. Go ahead.
Sorry. So just one point I want to make before we move on from this topic is that in Ibn Kathir's tafsir, there is one section where he says the reason why Allah didn't send signs of the miracles So basically, when people were disgruntled or when they were skeptical, that oh prophet, if you're claiming all these miracles, I mean, why can't you turn the as-safa into gold for us? So I think like it's the mountain, like turn the mountain into
Yeah.
gold. And then God's revelation came to Muhammad that, hey, I have heard what these people are saying. Like God is telling Muhammad that I have heard what they're saying, their doubts, and if you wish, I will do what they say. But once I do that, the punishment will come down if they don't believe, or rather, after the sign has been sent, there is no room for speculation. Or if you wish, I will be patient with your people and give them more time. So then Muhammad responds like, oh Lord, give them more time. How convenient is that? I mean, you can have it in the bag by converting a mountain into gold, but then conveniently Allah asks Muhammad, and Muhammad says like, oh, it's a sign of mercy. Let my people have more time to process this.
Because
And
God has to ask Muhammad, and Muhammad has to advise God.
Yeah. You have to know that God actually really, really loved Muhammad. So he gave him a lot of choices. If you read the narrative of the Muslims, there's a lot of choices that Muhammad got in his life, apparently. Even on his deathbed, he got the choice if he wanted to live long or die now. But because he is the perfect human, he is so special that God actually takes advice from him. But I'm thinking, like, just refuse any physical truth evidence for your God, and let us argue bullshit to prove the God. It doesn't make sense.
So can we take Muhammad as the advisor of God? Wouldn't that be shirk too?
As long as you don't pray for him, or I don't know.
Okay, so how old was Muhammad when he died?
63?
64. Yeah.
So he should have asked for more time just so that he could attend his wife's high school graduation.
Yep.
Yes. His new wife. Well,
she wasn't the new one by then.
No. He married a lot of women after that, but his second wife. Okay, precisely his second wife.
Again, people don't remember that Muhammad owned a sex slave. He owned a concubine too. I have to remind people, like, your prophet owned a concubine. You know that. Just don't talk about feminist Muslims. Don't start going.
And was she the mother of most of his children?
She was the mother of one of his children.
Ibrahim.
Okay.
He even once got in trouble for sleeping with her on the bed of one of his wives on that wife's day. Yeah. There's a whole surah in the Quran about it. We'll get to it.
We will get to it.
Oh yeah, we will get to it. You cannot sleep on the day of one of your wives with another wife on her bed. That's like a double insult.
It wasn't even a wife. He slept with a slave. Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. No. That's like Mo was a bad guy. Aaron is, okay, I'm just going to go to 3.
Okay.
Because we kind of eviscerated one. And again, we can go for another 2 hours on this, and it doesn't matter. The story is as ludicrous as it is.
Yep.
So number 3, 17:3. Yes, there is a good way to interpret that, so no one else but the descendants of the people of Noah's boat. Your interpretation is okay. If you want to read 17:3.
Oh, okay. All right. So 17:3 is. Oh wait, I skipped it. You descendants of those we carried with Noah, he was truly a thankful servant. So that implies that everybody that is being addressed here is a descendant of Noah, which means that everybody in the world is a descendant of Noah.
Yes.
Which the Quran kind of alludes to in another verse when it says, it's mentioning the story of Noah, and it says, and we made his descendants the one who stayed.
Yes. That one we already did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it says in the Arabic verse, says Hamalna ma'a Nuh. There is people with Noah, but the descendants of Noah are the one that continues breeding. But there were
only the people
with it.
who were on the boat with him that survived and that have descendants. Nobody else does.
I wish I had read
Okay.
the Quran ages before I did, although this is the right way to do it. With you guys' help, it really is the right way to do it. But I mean,
Yep.
I was accosted by somebody from the IERA where Adnan, I can't remember his name. But anyway,
Not Khashoggi, no?
yeah, no. But
No.
anyway, this guy interrupted me to say that, that I mentioned something about how the Quran talked about the flood, and he says the Quran doesn't mention the flood. And I was a little confused at that. Well, yeah, the Quran mentions the flood over and over and over again in a whole bunch of different surahs.
Yeah.
But I couldn't
Yeah.
say then.
You couldn't say because you didn't know the Quran.
I had heard
Back
that
then.
it referenced the flood, but I never read the thing.
Right. Right. And you say, well, no, it doesn't say. And then you can't answer because you don't know.
And now that I have,
Anyways.
I'm like, where did this guy come from saying that it doesn't mention?
Yeah, now you would stand on his toes and said, prove it, prove it, prove it.
I have noticed a lot, especially with Muslim apologists, that they will lie very quickly if they know that you don't know as much as like if you know, if they think that you don't know the Quran, they are coming with a lie. They're not coming honestly. Which, like, now I recognize like all that bullshit that they go through just to try to convey a logical story, which is not actually logical, just bending over backward trying to figure out this book that doesn't make sense, that it's written by a guy who cannot read or write 1400 years ago.
I'm gonna have to like slightly disagree. There are a bunch of those, but with my experience, there are a lot of Muslims who are just like, "Yep, this is the faith. This is what we believe in. Take it or leave
Yeah,
it."
see, they are
No, I mean,
dealing
when
with
you
individual, like personal, like when you talk to a simple Muslim, they will be like, yeah, this is our faith, take it or leave it. But when you go to an apologist, someone who actually works and live on making an apology for this book, and they will lie. I have seen them multiple times, and I look at the videos like how people believe this bullshit when you listen to this lie, and afterward they would like lie again. It's like, dude,
yeah, well,
just stop lying.
you have to pick your apologists. Some of them will lie. Some of them will not lie, and I appreciate that. And some of them who are not apologists will face the grim reality of what the Quran says, and will say, yeah, but that's still the Quran, and I believe it because I guess I want to go to heaven anyways. And
Yeah.
some of them fly right out of there, and that's what makes it worth confronting them with it, because some of them never look at it seriously. They just believe it. It's a good book, and and that's it. And then he said, but it says, do this. Is that okay with you? No. Do this. Is that okay with you? No. Then what are you believing, dude?
Mhm.
Right? And
So
they never have this confrontation happen to them until they meet the atheist who basically stops there and said, no, this book says this and it's awful and you should know it too.
quickly want to jump in here.
Yeah.
So with 2 points, if I remember them. So the first would be the ultimate purpose of an apologist, or da'is, as they call them, is to convert people to Islam, is to bring people to Islam. So now you could use multiple strategies to this. There is no rational discussion about truth. It's only rational so long as it leads for someone to believe to convert to Islam. So for example, let's say if you have a scientific temper, they try to judge what kind of person you are. So if you have a sort of a scientific temper, then they'll try to bring you like these scientific facts, the 1400 years ago kind of narrative, and then which is full of sophistry, by the way. I mean, if you look at the likes of Ahmad Didat, Zakir Naik, Bilal Phillips, and all these people, which are actually very bad arguments, but they're very they enchant you, which happened in my case. I mean, I was actually taking the program of Zakir Naik on how to deal with the non-believers, and they have different sections, in fact, in their course, like how to talk to Christian apologists. These are the top 10 questions, and then how to talk to the Hindu apologist, etc., or how to talk to an atheist. So they have classified all that information, and they talk within that framework. If they realize that someone is in need of let's say if someone is going through a difficult time, then there'll be more empathetic approach towards that person. So you see, like the ultimate purpose is to convert them to Islam, and
Which
that's
is
why
a
maybe. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, this is one of the reasons why I believe that an honest and to the point approach about Islam is the best way to approach any apologetic. Like, hey, I'm not going around this. Like, here is what the text is saying. How are you explaining this? And where are you coming up with your explanation? Like, because they sometimes come up with the weirdest ass shit.
Yes, I've had this encounter many times. There's people, ex-Muslims, debating against me on points in the Quran, and I proved them wrong. And they already left Islam. Like there was no stake. We were having a beers in a bar, right? And it came up and go, oh, that's not in the Quran, but people do it 10% times. Going to know that is in the Quran here, here, and here. And then she looks it up and is going like, damn, yeah, it is there. Damn it. Okay.
You would.
Anyways.
Sorry,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, on that point itself, I mean, there was one of the points where I was bringing up that sex slaves were allowed in Islam, right? Like for men only, though, exclusive. And then female sex slaves are allowed for men to have sex with. And a group of my friends and cousins was just shocked. They were like, "What are you talking? Are you smoking something?" They couldn't believe that it's a part of the Quran.
It is.
And
it's
then
right in there.
So that's the thing.
Yeah.
They keep you away from all this controversial knowledge.
Oh yeah,
like,
those are not discussed.
For example, when I was until like even in my late 20s, I did not know about the battles of. I knew about the Battle of Badr, which was against the disbelievers, but I didn't know about the Battle of the Camel, which was between Aisha and Ali, and I didn't know about the battle of between the Muawiyah and Yazid. And there's a lot of controversy there because there were more Muslims were killed between battles between Muslims than against non-Muslims. So we don't hear about these things, and people were shocked. People were telling me that no, zina is one of the biggest sins. Like adultery is one of the biggest sins in Islam. How can you say that you can have sex with someone who's not your wife? And I tried to explain them, but they just dismissed me.
This very surah has a verse in it that says no. Adultery is not okay.
Yeah. My point being, people are not. People are kept away deliberately from certain knowledge.
Yes.
Because they would start questioning it. Yeah.
Okay. My next note, 1708. This is
1708.
Okay. 08. Yes. Verse 8 is misformed in the text. The number 8 is misformed.
Misformed, what do you mean?
Like it's not on top of the text as the other verse markers.
I'm lost.
When your Lord, the part that starts with verse 8, your Lord, format the 8
mercy
like
on you, but if you do the same again.
So the number 8 is not high, it should be on top.
Okay. A typo? Really?
It's a typo. That's why I was going to, small note. I'll just do it. We move on.
I thought you were gonna bring up like how Muslims like are debating if the current like quote unquote damage that the Jews are doing is the first or the second, because that's a genuine debate in the Islamic world.
I don't know. Let me tell you the truth. I don't keep count.
Is this the first time that they're ruining things, or is this the second time? And are we the people
because this verse said twice. They said right. They said ruin it twice. How they do that? I mean, if you even go to the Bible, there's so many times the Jews just veer off the straight and narrow ways of the Lord, and then they get hammered for it. And then they get a better king, and then they go back to the straight and narrow again. It's basically all the Old Testament. But you take that out and you have a small book.
Yeah, for Muslims, like right now, they consider Israel to be one of those, like the existence of Israel, they consider it to be one of those damages. And the argument is just like, is this the first time or the second time? That's the whole argument about it.
I hope they disagree on it.
You know how many times I heard that the verses before 8 talking about people using it as to make Muslim feel good about Israel, that they're gonna get destroyed and they're gonna get like they will be ashamed or whatever. And there's multiple hadith that at the end of time where Muslim gonna fight the Jews or stuff like this. And I'm thinking, you know, I remember one sentence my dad said. He said, if Israel will give the equal treatment to the Arabs that they give to the Jews, they would be the best Middle Eastern country. And I'm thinking, I think that's the only time my dad said anything good about Israel. Because he acknowledged that democracy, that Israel is a democratic country and an actually honest and a good country. Except they don't treat them, the Arab, the Muslims equally, or at least that's what the media in the Middle East try to portray Israel as.
Okay. Next point.
But yeah.
1712. Please read your notes about studyislam.org that you have there.
All right, that paragraph was, the arrangement of the surahs or chapters in the Quran is not chronological. The longest surahs are placed in the front first of the book. Thus, to take the Quran and read it straight through throws no light on the life and work of the Prophet, but simply bewilders the reader. Maulavi Muhammad Ali Akadiani, I know I butchered that.
Whatever.
Yeah, a commentator asserts that the whole Quran was committed to writing during the Prophet's lifetime, and that the present arrangement of chapters and verses was made under the Prophet's own superintendence. If this is so, it is difficult to say why recensions were necessary under Abu Bakr and Uthman, and what Zayd's work really was, nor is it easy to conceive that so capable a person as Muhammad would have left his book in so unintelligible a form.
Yeah,
so that was from
I
Islam talking about
right.
why it's out of order, and that seems to be an admission that this is all composed by people who have no idea what they're doing.
Well, of course it is. Of course it is. But again, it also references the chronological order. And I found that interesting that you found it where you found it. Yeah.
It is. There are like Muslim scholars. When you go deep into it, they admit that there are like that we're not 100% sure about pretty much anything. There was recently like a very famous like controversy about Yasser Qadi going on a podcast with Muhammad Hijab, discussing like the origins of the Quran and how preserved it is. Where he literally admits that the standard narrative has holes in it, and that he's not willing to discuss those in public, that he'll only discuss it with experts on the topic. Yeah, like, which is a word that I have myself heard before from professors of Sharia. When I brought up, like, as a very devout Muslim back then, I was like, listen, there are some hadiths in Bukhari that have a lot of issues with them. And like, it's not just me saying that, it's like people who studied Sharia who are saying that. And I think it's important, like, for Muslims to like purify these things, point them out before people pointing them out for us. And they were like,
right,
no.
And that's supposed to be Bukhari, right? Like that's the one of the base stones of Hadith, right?
The answer was simply the public are not ready to have these conversations. If they lose faith in part of Bukhari, they lose faith in all of Bukhari, and if they lose faith in all of Bukhari, they lose faith in Quran, and that's what the enemies of Islam want.
Oh,
that was literally the answer that I got to saying, you guys know and admit that there are hadiths that have problems in them. Why aren't you making that knowledge more public?
Right, because
gatekeeping knowledge, it's the worst thing that Muslims end up at in the Middle Ages. That when they start gatekeeping the knowledge of everything from the public, we see in the early history of Muslims when they were more open to the situation that they to knowledge and philosophy. They were more the golden ages of Islam, or the golden age of Islam. There were more philosophers. There were more influences from outside Arabia and Islam that actually helped and moved people ahead. Not until the Crusade and the Mongols coming through and destroying everything that people start actually retreating back to the desert nomads and listening to crazy people. So
I
Okay.
want to actually take it back to the verse because I think this verse is another proof that the person who wrote it doesn't know like the actual world. The verse is saying that we made the day and the night, and we made them so that you will know what years and math are. When we know that it happened, like it kind of like it wasn't that we made up years to make sense of the day, not that the day came so that we know years.
Oh, okay.
Like the verse is assuming that the years were a concept and God made the day and the night to help us understand and make sense and count that concept, and doesn't
Yes.
understand that the whole concept of year is a thing that human beings came up with. And like we can literally see the evolution of the concept of year throughout human history. So
One of the things I like about the argument of creation, you referring to the years and the days and everything, is look how that works. I mean, there's sort of 24 hours, not a round number, it's 24, right? It's not 10, right? It's not 100, it's 24. And then how many days in the week? Well, there's 7, but then there's some discrepancy there because the days aren't quite 24 hours. So what they end up with the years, 365. There's an arbitrary number, right? Why was it 365? Why can't it be 100 or 1,000 or some kind of round number? But then it's 365, and then we have to have a leap year every 4 years. I mean, so all of this implies that there was no kind of structure to it. I mean, this is not the way a watchmaker winds his watch.
exactly,
that's
we
and
tried to make
yeah.
sense of the sorry, Mubarak. We
Yeah,
tried to
yeah,
make sense of those things by like, oh wait, like the year, like the days change and the seasons change, and we need to keep track of that. So we came up with the concept of a year, which corresponds to how long it takes for Earth to go around a year, like around the sun. But
No,
it
no, no,
had
no, no, no. That's Allah makes the year so many days.
Let him make the point.
yeah, but I lost it. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry about that.
Like the concept of timekeeping, we know it's from the Babylonian, at least in the Western, what influenced the Western time. It's from the Babylonian time. That's why we see a lot of connection to 12, because that their numbering system and their counting system was based on 12. But the fact is, it's all made up bullshit. The year, time, even minutes and stuff, it's all made up. That you could see it in the history where the French Revolution was going on. They tried to change it because they didn't want a connection to the church, so they tried to change it. They didn't have to the people didn't like the change because it's a big change. But other than that, it's all just like you could change it. It's made up. There's no actual realistic thing that keep in time or date. But here, if you think about it, and as the Quran, just like what Assam said, that the year as a concept is already in God's mind, or it's already implemented before the night and the day was implemented. That's just a sign for us, mere human, weak people, to know what time is it.
Well, I think we can say that days are objective. We know that there's a beginning and end to that, and the year is another objective measure. We came up with months because we thought the moon was involved somehow, and that was completely wrong. But
It's like there are multiple indications that whoever wrote the Quran and whoever came up with Islam didn't understand cosmology at all. Like even when it comes, like Arabs used to have the leap month, which would correct the lunar year to a more solar year style of thing. But Muhammad didn't understand it, and so he canceled it, which is why, yeah,
Oh.
he didn't understand. He was like, wait, you're adding an extra month before the haram month? So wait, no, you guys are making tricks. He didn't understand. He was like, no, that thing is wrong. It's gone. And since then, there has been a discrepancy between the Muslim lunar year and the solar year. Like Arabs were smarter and they knew math before Muhammad and corrected for the lunar year being shorter by a leap month. that Muhammad didn't understand. He was like, yeah, gone.
I'm so
Okay.
glad you're on this show.
So regarding this topic, I mean, it always confused me since childhood, and even till date, there's always disagreements between people where they're trying to find out when the Eid is, for example, or when is the beginning of Ramadan. When there is one hadith which says that you have to see the moon at dusk, and if the moon is visible, then basically the Eid would be the next day. And so some people end up, some people see the moon, some others don't see the moon, and then they end up. Some people celebrate. This is especially in India. I know that other places they follow the dates, but some people still believe in the tradition of watching the moon, and they would celebrate the Eid one day, and then the other people would celebrate the other. So they're always fighting every year, and
Oh,
it
yeah.
always occurred to me that why? I mean, we have advanced so much technologically that we can actually tell all these. We can actually use a scientific method, but they want to stick to the tradition.
Yeah,
Seven
and that's quite a split in the Muslim community. There are groups that say, okay, if we can scientifically prove that the moon would be visible even if nobody sees it, then it's Eid tomorrow, right?
Right.
But then others says, no, we actually have to have a number of people and twice the number of women see the moon at one place or another, and then we can declare
Yeah. Well, like
Eid being
I
tomorrow.
have had that argument back when I was a Muslim with people in my family who were like, listen, there is a hadith that says, fast when you see it, break your fast when you see it, or end your fasting when you see it, and that's what we're gonna do.
Yeah. Anyway, 1716.
1716. All right. Let me find 16.
Yeah.
All right, so when we decide to destroy a town, we command those corrupted by wealth to reform, but they persist in their disobedience. Our sentence is passed, and we destroy them utterly. I'm sorry, I just
Perfectly fitting.
Well done. Actually, the translation isn't as bad as it should be.
really.
Yes. I'm gonna translate it again for you, with the added badness necessary for it to be correct.
Okay.
I'll take all the sin for that. And Allah says, if we wanted, this is a royal we, if we wanted to destroy a village, we would order its rich to commit corruption in the land, and then when they do that, they would qualify for the destruction, and then we give them the good old instruction we wanted to give them anyways.
Okay.
And I'm gonna add something, is that there is a variant reading of the word amarna
Yes.
as amarna, which switches it from we ordered to we made them rulers.
Okay.
Mine
doesn't have the shadda.
It's a variant narration, like one of the
Right.
Ahraf things. So, and both versions are equally as bad. God is saying, yeah, like if I wanted to destroy a town, I put
Yes.
in the reasons that would make that town deserving of punishment,
And I'll make that reason happen.
Yeah.
Right. So
Like,
now you can
God
do the muhaha again.
Yeah, let him finish the point.
Like
Now you can do the muhaha again.
So yeah, God is like literally like he knows the plan. He knows that you can fix a town or you can ruin it. He knows that like by putting certain people in charge or by facilitating certain people to be in control or not in control, a town can become a good town or a bad town. But God sometimes decides to make the decisions to facilitate that town turning into a bad town, and then so that it would become deserving of destruction, and then he destroys it.
Yeah. So.
The Muhaha was very we're very
Yeah.
fitting.
Yeah. Definitely a Muhaha verse. 1717 is a good catch. We don't need to get into it. And 1723 says, don't say oof to your parents. Actually, the Quran uses the word oof.
What does oof mean?
Oof is like the Gen Xers use, like, oh, big oof.
Like it is supposed to be like when your parents are telling you to do something and you're like, ugh.
Oh,
You're not supposed to say that.
okay.
It's like
If
a
your
sigh.
parents tell you to do something, you
Yeah.
just do it, unless God says it's haram. So it's pretty much slavery.
Okay.
Well, yeah. So the
I have
problem
to
here,
say, from here on, there is
the problem here is
Let him speak, Bogey. Let him speak.
I'm letting him speak.
Okay.
I was just gonna say that from here, from verse 23, I think until 13:9. I think it's until 39. It's kind of a vague idea of what the Muslim Ten Commandments look like, and it's vague. It's not very strict, and it's not very numbered, and it's repeated somewhere else multiple times. But that's vaguely what's the kind of the closest concept I could think of is just the Ten Commandments of
Yeah.
Islam.
Yeah. Do you know that 23 and 24 are abrogated?
No.
Okay. So you can say oof to your parents if they don't believe. That's the abrogation. 9:113 is actually the abrogator. It is not fit for the Prophet and those who believe that they should ask forgiveness for the polytheist, even though they should be near relatives, or become clear to them that they are in imminence of inmates of a flaming fire. So if your parents are non-believers, you can disobey them and be not nice to them. That's perfectly okay.
The way we were taught it is that even if they were non-believers, you're nice to them in anything except the things that are against Islam. So you still have to be nice to them, but you do not obey them in anything that's against Islam. You do not condone anything against Islam that they do. Like, you have to treat them as a kafir, but you do not disrespect them. That is the way we were taught.
How do you
be
treat them as a kafir? What's the treatment of the kafir?
So yeah, like it's that. I think it's like treating them as a nice kafir, not as a kill them kafir.
Oh, okay.
That kind of difference. Like, the
Okay.
verse that says, لا ينهاكم الله عن الذين لم يقاتلوكم في الدين ولم يخرجوكم من دياركم. God doesn't like tell you not to be nice to those who did not fight you in religion, did not kick you out of your homes, to be nice to them. God is just telling you to fight those who
Yeah,
are.
but what if they did? Right? What if they're your parents and they did?
Then they turn into kill them kafirs. Then they have become people who are fighting Allah and His Prophet, and they
So say oof to them. Anyways, this is not 9:5. This is 9:113. The abrogator, so it's different, right? But still, I stumbled on the oof and I was going, okay, that's nice. Let's bring it up. Okay, 20. Okay, 24 abrogated. 25, please, Aaron. Read your notes about your debate with Hamza.
Okay.
That abrogation will actually explain to you what Hamza was telling you.
Yeah, I once debated a Hamza Sortis, a Muslim activist, who lamented the certain fact in his mind that his beloved Greek father died without ever believing his son's apologetics arguments for Islam, and that Hamza's dad was consequently doomed to merciless, eternal savagery in hell simply because of Hamza's own failure to convince his dad. And then I went on to
Yep.
say, what's the point of asking for God's mercy when the book constantly repeats that your loved ones aren't going to get any mercy, that they will
Right.
be tortured with merciless cruelty for all eternity, no matter what you pray for, and regardless of whatever is in your heart.
Yeah, Hamza Torsis is not wrong at all on this one. He's right. You don't pray for your dead parents if they were atheists, because Allah is not going to forgive them. Right? One of the concepts in Islam is that if you had a good son and you weren't a very good Muslim, that good son can actually get you in heaven by praying for you. Unless you were an atheist parent, in which case there is no out for you. Okay?
Mm-hmm. So
Okay,
God will make Christians or Jews, but not atheists.
yes.
He
Well,
might. We don't know. He said, "I will forgive everything except shirk," which is maybe not Jews, maybe not Christian.
yeah,
We don't know yet.
Yeah, well,
if
not
somebody
yet.
needs to write a hadith, make something up.
From
We
what
need
I
to
know
write
is
it.
that from what I know is that nobody on this earth can tell who will go to heaven and who will go to hell. Heaven and hell, yeah. Only God knows that. So that's why it's even forbidden, I think, to say that so and so person is going to heaven or so and so person is going to hell as human beings. So you never really know. I mean, God might decide that he really had faith in his heart, and I think like that's what people hope for.
Yeah, like the argument is that maybe 5 seconds before that person
Correct.
died, they they just had an epiphany and believed, and maybe God forgave them for reaching that epiphany before they died, and we don't know, and therefore we cannot judge anyone, but we can make like a statement such as, if someone died while kafir, then they're definitely going to hell.
How do we know that?
Yeah, that is the point. So that
We
that
wouldn't
was the
know.
point. That was the point that we were being taught, and that was like
Right.
considered to be like the moderate version, not like, in contrast to like the jihadi or the takfir version, which use the argument, no, like if you're not doing this, then you are a kafir, and I get to kill you.
Yeah.
What's next, Bogey?
1725 is just an editing note. Again, you have split verse 25 in your explanation. Like you split the verse in two pieces, and there are two mentions of verse 25 in the text.
Okay.
That's just confusing. Like I got verse 25, okay, you explained it, and then you have verse 25 again and explain that the second part.
Well, it needed a number, and it's
Just
still
I
25
don't.
part 2.
Yeah. Anyways, small note. 27.
Okay, those who squander are the brothers of Satan, and Satan is most ungrateful to his Lord. So does that mean that if I squander, then I am a fire demon, and
No,
I
not
share the
really.
same parents?
You're friends with him, but my main
Yeah.
problem
It
with
says
the
brother.
Hey, look,
Right,
it's
you're
an
the
Arabic
brother, like
expression. Arabic
Mhm.
expression, like saying the brother of something, meaning having that quality,
Okay.
or like similar to, so like brothers of Satan means like they're kind of his people. They're doing his kind of things.
It's a fraternity brotherhood kind of thing. It's not biological, and it's not just Satan. It's all the shayateen, which is all the multiple Satans, like of the jinns.
Devils.
So that basically you'll get the same punishment as them. That's what is implied here.
Right. Now here is a problem with with the translation that Aaron reads. مبذرين كانوا أخوان الشياطين, which is correct, multiple shayateen, right? وكان الشيطان, which is singular, لربه كفورا. Shaitan knows Allah exists. He actually had an argument with him and got fired for it. Right?
So yeah, but like he denied him his like he was a kafir.
No, but he knows he can't kafir it. He knows for sure
So
that
this
Allah
is
exists.
Yeah, because this is the original kind of use of kafir, meaning to cover. So he's trying to cover up his belief of God by doing these
Yes.
sins. Like he knows that God exists, but he's such a kafir in his core that he covers up that reality in him and does everything to oppose it or to cover it or to like mislead people from it.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call it kafir here. Like the shaitan knows Allah exists. Like he
And
has conversations with him.
because the word kafir, like right now, is used exclusively to mean denying God's existence, but in origin it wasn't just for that. Like the word has
Okay.
multiple uses. It can be used just to mean uh, denying like a blessing is considered a kufr. You know,
Right,
in a way,
because you assume that the blessing happened, you're just denying it.
or like not doing due thankfulness to God is considered in a way a kufr. Like you're not being like, you know, you're not returning the good. Like you can see the good, but you're not acting as if you received it from God. You should be way more thankful. That is the argument for it.
Okay. 29 is the next one.
29, and that is, do not be tight-fisted nor open-handed that you end up blamed and overwhelmed with regret.
Right. A funny note around this: angry wife who resents her husband spending too much money on riffraff will bring up this verse.
Okay.
You're just throwing the money away on everything. No, don't. This is the verse, right? She picks this one. Just a side note on it. 1731.
1731, do not kill your children for fear of poverty. We shall provide for them and for you. Killing them is a great sin.
Yes. Can this verse be used against abortion?
That's my first thought when I read it.
It is used against abortion, but it's mostly like it is allegedly to oppose people actively killing their born children because they're afraid.
Yeah. We had that discussion.
Yeah,
before.
but yeah, like people do actually use it against abortion. That you cannot use the argument that I don't think I'm financially ready for a kid to to go to an abortion.
So
Like, no.
technically, if you are emotionally not ready to have a kid, in Islam you could have an abortion. Because it says only financially you can, if you claim the financial problem, you cannot have abortion. But if you have emotional, mental problem, or whatever other problem, you could have abortion, according to this verse.
No, that is
No, I
not
don't
how
think-
Muslims read
no.
it, Mubarak.
I know they don't read it like this.
Anyways,
that would be
I wanted to bring this. Yes, well, we're all going to hell for it for sure. I
Yep.
wanted to bring this up because this verse can and probably is being used for anti-abortion purposes because it's very usable that way.
But I think the context of this verse was, so we have to understand the verses in the context of what it said. And reading into it more would be bid'ah, like innovation, as they call it. And either way, I think like this is in the context of infanticide. I think the Arabs used to practice female infanticide, where
Yes.
and then they would bury the dead. So I think like this is one of the I actually think this is one of the good verses of the Quran, which I can respect.
Okay.
See,
Oh, yeah,
those verses, those from 23 to 39, are all response for something that actual Arabs or the people that Muhammad lived with were doing. People that listen to their parents, which is all the time. No one listens to their parents, and people having like sex outside marriage. People are killing kids. That's only respond to what Muhammad thinks is bad, and he sees in people around him. So that's why he's kind of refuting what people doing around him.
Yeah, I
Next
agree with
one.
Mubarak. I think these few verses, like even if we we disagree with some of them, have like a few very nice commandments. Like I
Oh,
like
yeah,
the way
they do.
I like the way
They-
that Mubarak like pointed out that yeah, they seem kind of like a list of commandments.
Yeah, they are. I mean, 1732, no sex outside marriage. No
It's not even
prostitution.
no sex. I remember like a lot of sermons being used about do not go near zina.
Oh, right. There is
So
the
like
prohibition of going near it.
yeah,
Like you
so like
can't go into the brothel street.
it's not even that. Like we were being taught that zina is the actual act of having sex, but
Yes.
going close to zina is that. Like if you think that if you look at this woman for too long, you might like fall for her and like wanna have sex with her, then looking towards her falls into going near zina. Like if
Wow.
you think that you're supposed to stay away from things that you think might lead you to do sex outside of marriage.
Yeah.
Do I have to think that, or does the society in general decide that it might?
So zina means sex outside of marriage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but it also sounds like a perfectly fine female name.
It's close to an actual female name, Zaina or Zina, which means decoration or looking nice.
Okay.
But it's there is an extra letter in that one in the Arabic version.
Right. It's a slight spelling mistake.
Okay.
So, by the way, this doesn't apply to your sex slaves. You can still have sex with them.
Oh yeah, no, those are okay. You own them. Remember, every verse later on when it talks about whom you can have sex with, blah 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 blah, mentions specifically and what you own by your right hand. Which
So
is
don't go to your
slave.
neighbor's wife until you can make her your slave.
Or your wife.
Easy.
Yeah.
Or just get someone, Anyway, 1733.
1733. All right, that is, do not take life which God has made sacred except by right. If anyone is killed wrongfully, we have given authority to the defender of his rights, but he should not be excessive in taking life, for he is already aided by God. I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm confused at that.
Blood
You
feud.
kill anybody unless it's okay.
Yes, because there
Yes.
are okay killings in Islam. One of them is the apostates, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, probably your parents who don't believe, but we discussed that. And the other thing is, this verse, I think, also can be used to sanctify the death penalty, because it only says that the wali, the heir of the dead, or those who are having what is it called, attorney power over him. Well, he's dead, so he's not going to do anything. Would have power over those who do the wrongful killings, but they should not overdo it. They should not overdo the killing. So I think this just references to, you only have to kill the person who killed your relative or whatever. You don't have to kill their entire family or half their tribe.
That's exactly what we were
Yes.
told it means.
Yeah. See, prior to the time of Muhammad, there were two wars in Arabic history that between both of them, they extended for 80 years. And both of them connected in some way of a blood feud between two tribes. So there are two tribes who have blood feuds that will last for a long time. So rather than killing each other, just kill one guy, which decrease the number of people that died and getting killed. And God is gonna support you and give you victory upon the ones that actually committed the original murder. So it's a response to something that Arab people were doing at the time of Muhammad.
Okay.
Yeah, and like
Next.
we cannot forget that illa bil haq, except with right, can mean a lot of things
Yes.
in Islam.
Yeah, that's like a wide open. But I just
Yeah, like
bring,
there is
I
the famous
just
hadith
brought
with
in this
everything.
specific thing, that whom you can kill and whom you can't. And just for
Yep.
example, there are plenty of ways you can get somebody's, body parts cut off for reasons. So Islam does recognize the mistaken murder and the deliberate murder difference. And when
Yes.
the murder is deliberate, they have death penalty for it. They call it qisas, right? So they actually go and execute the murderer, preferably, in this case. And they don't go and execute half the tribe because you murdered, let's say, a prince or a sultan or something important.
And there is
right?
like a final point on this is that the wali, like the people who have the right, have like the authority to drop the right for the blood.
Yes, they do.
They
So
can
this
just
is
like
where
they can
this
just
is
drop it
where-
and be like, yeah, just give us the money, like the blood
Yeah.
money, and we're fine.
Yeah. So they actually can say, no, we don't want this guy killed. We just want $1 million, and then you don't get executed for basically a wrongful murder, as it is. What is it? 44.
44. Jumping ahead a bit.
Oh, so just a second. 35. Yes, through the scale. Again, another commandment type verse.
What was that, 45 or 35, did you say?
It's 35, I said.
Is through the scale?
Yeah, through the scale.
Okay. Do not follow blindly what you do not know to be true. Eyes, ears, and heart. You will be questioned about all of these.
This is 35.
Oh no, that's 36. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
Give full measure when you measure, and weigh with accurate scales. That is better and fairer in the end.
I was more succinct than the Quran. I just say through the scale. That's all. Any other comments? I don't think there are.
Okay.
45 and 56.
All right. 45.
45 to 56.
Really? Okay. Prophet.
Oh, no, 45 and 56. Sorry.
Okay. When you recite the Quran, we put an invisible barrier between you and those who do not believe in the life to come.
That's bad news for us atheists. I mean, come on, we recite the Quran. We're atheists.
We're only atheists because he put that barrier there.
Yeah, but then we can't get to our friends in hell.
56 is say, call upon those whom you claim to be deities beside God. They have no power to remove or avert any harm from you. So why did I read those two together?
45. 45. Good catch, yes. He's a lot less forgiving and merciful here. That's a comment on your explanation.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a lot less merciful than his previous verses. You noted it. Yes, correct. He's a lot less merciful now.
Okay. And next?
Okay. Next is 55.
55 comes before 56, okay?
Oh, okay. So then skip it then.
Your Lord knows best about everyone in the heavens and the earth. We gave some prophets more than others. We gave David a book of Psalms.
Yes, he's still courting the Jews at this point. He's still trying to get to them, right? So that's a kind of a backdrop picture that is still there.
So he just adopted or adapted or appropriated, I guess, Moses and David and Solomon.
Yes.
Yeah, he
And he's
appropriated everyone.
Yeah, and he's speaking favorably about them because he's courting the Jews, because he pretty much knows at this point he's going to end up in Medina. And there's a lot of Jews. There is a big Jewish community in Medina, right? So it's kind of like, let's have friends, get together. Let's not hate each other, blah, blah, blah. We will see that. We'll see that later, and we'll see when he flips on that. 60.
I have to point here. It's the same position every religion in history have taken. Whenever a religion is in a weak position, they will make friends. The moment they take power, they are just destroying everyone else standing in front of them. We will see that in the Quran.
It
I just
will
have
be
to know
available.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, what verse am I going to?
60?
60.
Can we go to 59 first?
Certainly.
Okay.
So let's see, 59. Nothing prevents us from sending miraculous signs except the fact that previous peoples denied them.
Yes.
Gave the-
Like that is God's argument. That is Muhammad's argument for the Qurayshis asking him for signs. He's trying to come up with whatever. Later, he's gonna say like, "Oh, like if angels could like walk peacefully, we would have sent an angel." But he's just coming up with any excuse. Oh wait, we're not sending signs because we tried signs before and people didn't believe it. But this is an omniscient God. Didn't he know like how to send a sign that people would believe in? He knows us, so he knows what signs we would like be convinced with. He
Yeah,
knows that for me, like a certain sign would make me convinced, but would not make like Mubarak or Aaron or whoever else is convinced. And he would know what miracle would convince everyone. But he chooses not to send those.
Oh, well, isn't she-camel convincing for you? A she-camel.
Well, yeah.
She's, I would rather have I would rather have Ben Gillette tell me that God made him skinny again.
But I mean, on that point, anyway, I don't want to get into that. We can
No, it's okay. It's your reference. Anyways, 60 is the one that we were going to talk about.
Prophet, we have
Please-
told you that your
please-
Lord knows all about human beings. The vision we showed you, that's it, the vision we showed you on Muhammad's drug trip was the only test for people, as was the cursed tree mentioned in the Quran. We warn them, but this only increases their insolence.
Read your
that
notes,
word.
please.
Only villains ever use that word.
Yeah,
Insolence.
please read your notes. This is awesome. Please go read the blog associated with the show
All right.
and this surah. Well done. This is a very good note. Please read it.
Thank you. This is not the same cursed tree as in the Garden of Eden, nor is it the tree that Jesus put a hex on for not bearing fruit in season. This verse refers to the tree of Zakum, which is supposed to grow out of hell, the fruit of which are said to look like demon heads and are the food of the hellions, causing them pain and interior damage upon eating it. Amazingly, to me at least, this macabre tree is based on an actual cactus-like plant called Euphorbia abyssinica, which really does bear fruit that looks like little tortured bat skulls covered in irritating spines. And true to the legend, the fruit is edible, but bitter, acidic, and astringent. It may not be true that we learn something new every day, but I just did, and I like it when I do.
See, the Quran
Nadir-
knew it
Na-
1400
Na-
years ago.
Yes, you see, Nadir would bring this as the Aaron Ra proof that the Quran is scientifically correct. There you go. This is an excellent note. 61. We need to get Iblis on this show. This is just a comment. And discuss his issues with mud. I'm pretty sure he can be helped out of this. Disdain to mud, and we can be friends again.
That's not the way it's phrased in my version.
No, this is just my snide comment on it.
Okay, got it.
Like, yeah, Iblis has issues with mud. 72,
okay.
please.
Wait.
The way the Quran mentions it is that Iblis's main point is that I am made of better material than him.
Well, he has issues with mud.
Yeah, go ahead, Mubarak.
And another point, the command was to the angels to bow. So Iblis must have been one of the angels,
Yeah,
just like how the Bible say a fallen angel, not like what the Muslim believe that he is a jinn.
No. We established that Iblis is an angel earlier on.
Yeah, no, I know. I'm just pointing that out.
I don't think we established that Iblis is an angel.
We
Yeah,
actually
like-
had this argument in an earlier episode before the rest of you guys joined. Where it was just Bogey and I, because there are references that say that he's a genie, and then there's these other implications that he's an angel. And are they in fact the same thing?
No. So there is a rule where, let's say, it's akin to saying, if you're in a class and you say like all of you guys stand up, right? And I mean, if there is one girl over there, she would also be included in the guys. So which is what's happening over here. That Iblis is the only jinn that's present over here. And when God says angel, it actually is a command for everyone to get up. So because
See,
God's not gonna.
no, I think the difference is when you go to a class and there's all like boys and a one girl, and you say all boys rise up, and the girls stand up. You're like, why are you standing up? And I think it's the same thing. They're saying that all angels bow down. So why not just say all believers bow down or all of you bow down, which is easier to say than actually saying all angels bow down. You have specified, or God have specified the verse to angels, and Iblis refused to bow, which
And he
includes
didn't have
him
to
in
bow.
the.
So he
And-
got
and the-
himself fired for no reason.
So
Yeah.
like the way that we were taught it is like kind of what Mohsen was saying,
Yes, yeah, I know.
along with that, like the devil or Iblis at that point had been such a great worshipper that he was included with the like angels, and he was like at one point called like some narrations say that he was called the peacock of the angels, like that, even though he was a jinni. So that is like the Islamic way of like bringing all those two concepts together. For me, I think just like whoever wrote it was trying to co-opt Christianity or like Judaism, and just fucked up.
What's really fascinating about this is where they, okay, so I get what you're saying there, and I mean, it makes perfect sense. But my understanding of the basis of that character is that Isaiah was not ever talking about the fallen angel. Isaiah was making fun of Babylonian astrology and the position of Venus, how Venus never rises above the moon. When the sun comes up and Venus is vanquished or disappears effectively. So I mean, that's all they were talking about. So you went, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, or O Hallel bin Shahar, right? You light bringer, son of the dawn. Not a guy, not an angel, not a fallen angel, but
Yes.
somebody got that interpretation, that translation out of it, and now the Muslims are trying to appropriate the mistake and incorporate their mistake into the book.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. 72.
On the day when we summon each community along with its leader, those who are given their record on their right hand will read it with pleasure, but no one will be wronged in the least.
Okay, that is kind of like out to lunch. In Arabic it says, وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي هَذِهِ أَعْمَى فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى وَأَضَلَّ سَبِيلًا. It does not like blind people at all. If he was here blind, he would be blind in the afterlife too, and even more lost.
So like that one is considered to be one of the biggest examples of majaz in Quran, which is like saying something but like meaning not the exact thing. So it's not talking about people who are like sight blind, but it's talking about people who are insight blind. That is literally what we were being told about this verse. It's not talking about blind people. It's talking about people whose insight is so blinded that they cannot see the truth of Islam and God. And therefore, those people will be like, as a punishment for them on the day of judgment, they will like be resurrected as blind people.
I also understood that as being blind, simply referring to not accepting the bullshit as reality.
Yeah.
Right. We understand that, but when you take the words that are written, he really doesn't like blind people.
It does like Islam does look at disabilities in a sense that they are like a test from God, or like it's either a test or a punishment from God. Depends if you are a believer or not. But it's always like a look down upon anyone with disabilities. You're supposed to look at them and be like, oh, thank God I don't have that disability. That's literally what you're supposed to say when you see them.
Yeah.
Ouch.
So the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to comment about it because there is a specific prayer you say when you see someone with disability that say, thank God that who have preferred me or like elevated me have given me full health, full whatever, better than you who have no sight or have no ability to move or whatever the situation. So it is one way of looking down at other people, which is really disgusting in Islam.
Yay. 78.
78.
The note is on times of prayer. Many say the times of prayer are entirely from Hadith, and yet we keep stubbing our noses into definitions and settings of prayer time, places, and directions as we read the Quran. I'm less convinced by the argument as we progress reading the Quran regarding the prayer times not being actually set and defined in the Quran.
Well, this verse says, "Pray from when the sun set until the night darkens, and remember to read and pray again in the Fajr, which is the early morning."
Exactly.
It doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't. Usually, what I remember, what they say is for the extra night prayer, not the actual 5-time prayers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think,
anyways, this is a bone I'm trying to throw in for the discussion. Like, do you actually think that all the prayer settings and definitions are from Hadith, or there is a lot of it defined in the Quran?
so not let me put it this way, not all of it is defined in the Quran. So basically there are people, I know of some people who just look at the Quran and they pray just 3 times a day because that's what is mentioned in the Quran, and I think like those people are rejected as kafirs by the Salafs, where there are actually 5 times if you consider the Hadith as well. So it's an argument between whether should we pray 3 times or should we pray 5 times is the argument. It's not, even though it's mentioned in the Quran sometimes, but like if you want to see all 5 times, that will be from the Hadith.
And then I noticed your notes referenced that in verse 79, and during the night wake up and pray as an extra offering of your own. So just wake up in the middle of the night and pray.
Right. Spend the night studying and reading the Quran and do extra prayers at night when you're not obliged to do other prayers, because the night is basically not designated for any specific prayers.
Oh, and preferably in the last third of the night.
Oh, those are the best hours.
Because that's when God like lowers himself down to the first sky, like the first heaven rather than the highest one. Yeah, and the last third of the night, God goes down to the first sky and he goes like calls out down to human beings. Anyone has something who wants to ask me so I can answer him? Anyone has a prayer that I can like answer back? And so the last third of the night is a very important time for you to pray or to read Quran. I know this sounds very funny right now, but you have no idea how many countless nights, like a lot of people, including myself, set up alarms, go to even sometimes set up with like friends so that they can go, like we can go and pray in a mosque, or like I
used to do that too. Let me tell you, and that was one of the last times I prayed at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was reading the Quran loud for me, and I reached to the point where he said, "I can make it rain or I can make it stop to rain," and I was going like, "No, that's bullshit. It's been a drought for 7 years. You didn't make it rain. It only rains when it's season, and it rains everywhere or nowhere at all. So bullshit."
Yeah.
Shut the book, left it there.
the best thing that ever came from the night prayer is actually coffee. And it's a side note, totally a side note. That's where the first use of coffee as like a stimulant is the Sufi prayers and Sufi like monks or whatever. They can't stay up all night praying, and then when they came across the coffee beans and stuff in Yemen and Ethiopia, they used it to stay up all night drinking the coffee and praying up all night. So I think it's the best thing ever coming from Islam is the coffee beans, and I love it so much.
There you know. 85, please.
85. All right. So, prophet, they ask you about prophet, they ask you about the spirit. Say, the spirit is part of my Lord's domain. You have only been given a little knowledge.
Right. This is the verse that's usually brought up on every spirit question when you ask about it. With soul, spirit kind of question. No, that's the domain of Allah, and we shall not talk about it. Yeah, we don't know much about souls and spirits. Of course, we don't know much about them because they kind of don't exist. So, anyways, just a side note, unless somebody wants to elaborate.
Yeah, I was just gonna add that like this was Muhammad being like, "Oh wait, this is a question I cannot answer." You know
Nope.
what? Not gonna answer. Yep.
Right, right. 88.
All right. So, on 88. Whoops, where is it? All right. So, say, even if all mankind and jinn come together to produce something like this Quran, they could not produce anything like it, however much they helped each other.
I would say Surah Corona, gentlemen.
I would say that this is like the most useless challenge ever, because
yes, it is.
You cannot win this challenge. If you come up with something that is too close to the Quran, Muslims will be like, you just use the Quran as reference. You did not come up with anything new. You're just copying God's style. So this is not your work. If you come up with something that is different from the Quran, they'll be like, this is different from the Quran. It's not like it. You did not fulfill like the requirements of the challenge. And either way, if you try to do that, we're gonna try and kill you. And we're gonna try and oppress you. Like you cannot, like, because you're insulting us. So it's an impossible challenge. Surah Corona that Bogi just mentioned, there are people being prosecuted right now.
Really?
For just publishing it on their social media.
Ooh.
Just sharing that surah on social media is getting people in trouble right now.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's not nice. That's a very nice surah, let me tell you that.
So this is a situation where the judge, jury, and the advocate are the same person, and you can't really make a case because, like Asim said, no matter what you come up with, it's bound to be rejected. Right. So for example, like Alif Lam Mim is one of the verses, right? If I come up with Alif Lam Mim Kaf, nobody knows what the meaning of that is anyway. Right, like why couldn't this be considered as like coming up with a verse like?
I think there is an Alif Lam Mim Kaf. I think there is one.
So maybe put some other letter over there. That would be a new verse. But obviously that'll be rejected because I mean they'll just say that you're copying the style of the Quran. And if you go too different from the Quran, then they'll again say that no, this is too different from the Quran. It's not like Quran, so you can't win this.
So there's no definition for what like means.
Correct.
Nope.
Yes.
No.
There's no clear
like
guideline.
This amorph thing that no, you can't do anything like it, and if you do something like it, then we just say it's not like it. So whatever. Anyways, interesting. I didn't know about the persecutions about Surah Corona. Hope everybody gets away scot-free.
Yeah, I think it's either in Algeria or Morocco. But yeah, people are being sent to trial over it.
Okay, Aaron, 97. Your point. To your point, Allah makes you believe or make you atheist. You have no choice in the matter, yet He demands your demise and bad treatment by your children for not believing. You can read your notes if you want.
If I want.
Well, if you, I think your notes are perfectly there. That's what.
All this posturing, bluffing, and puffing up, but you don't have anything, Muhammad. Go sit down.
Yes.
Yeah, which was like a perfect note, especially for the few verses like before this one, where like the Qurayshis are asking him for miracles, and he's like, "No, I'm just human."
Right.
Like,
I don't do miracles.
What we're saying. We're
But
just
he
saying
already
you're
split.
human.
Yeah, but this is the guy who claimed to split the moon, and in the very beginning of this surah, he claimed to have ridden a winged horse all the way to Jerusalem and then up the seven heavens. Like,
Which is
dude,
a very
make up your
interesting point.
mind.
Yeah, like it's a very interesting point. Like in the Quran, I feel that the argument from Muhammad's side is always, I'm just human, I'm not gonna do any of those things.
Yet he
But
does them.
yeah, like if there are like the stories, like especially in the Hadith, like most of the quote unquote miracles of Muhammad are in the Hadith, not in the Quran. And like which makes a lot of Muslims even say that the only miracle that Muhammad came up with was the Quran. Like the Quran is the miracle of Muhammad, and that's it.
Pathetic.
Okay. Yes, my last comment is at 111. If anybody has anything else between here and 111, then go ahead.
All right, so 111. Did I have 111? Oh, yes.
Yeah, you do.
And say, praise belongs to God, who has no child nor partner in his rule. He is not so weak as to need a protector. Proclaim his limitless greatness.
Yeah, solidifies Allah is a one God. Anyone who has partners, associates, children's, relatives, wives, whatever with him is in the bad side of everything, or is worshipping multiple gods at that point. Bad. AKA kafirs, mushriks, polytheists, whatever you name them. So these kind of it doesn't help when you look at Trinitarian Christians and read this verse, right? It really doesn't. If you look at Hindus, it absolutely is not okay, right? So
it's like it just sounds like this is a super narcissistic person describing themselves. I am a person that I have no kids, no partners, no like wali, no like nothing is like me. I'm like the best thing. I am like so. It's just like the perfect narcissistic vision that a narcissistic person wishes that they were.
Right. There is a whole surah for that. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. There you go. And you left nothing after that, and then you still repeating himself and blurping up every couple of surahs with stuff like this.
Because narcissists cannot stop talking about how great they are.
I guess they can't. I guess they can't. They just can't stop praising themselves and elevating their.
He's such a narcissist that in heaven he's gonna have us all keep praising him while in heaven, and it's gonna be like the way that Muhammad says it. We're gonna feel like we want to do praise to God in heaven the way that human beings feel that they need to breathe.
So just imagine a very Trumpian God. See, I'm number one on Facebook. Did you know I'm number one on Facebook? I just found that out. Nobody knows that.
It does help, yes. God is a very narcissistic, like the God described in the Quran is a very narcissistic person.
And then to the point of which is, again, I mentioned this before as well. When they talk about bearing the children, bearing the, before Muhammad, when he says that you shouldn't do that. And someone came and asked, which is the biggest sin? What are some of the worst sins? And then he says that associating partners with God is the first one, and then killing a child would be the second one. So basically, in this worldview, killing, if you're worshiping, let's say all of us over here are worse than someone who has killed a baby and buried that baby in the ground. So it's just unintuitive. It just doesn't make any sense.
We are super bad.
Yeah.
We are badder than bad.
It's one of the crimes of Islam is that it considers some crimes of thought to be worse than crimes against humanity.
Yeah.
It classifies like thought difference as a crime, and like it even establishes a punishment for it, and even makes it worse than many actual human crimes.
Right. The biggest crime in Islam, without a shred of a doubt, is not believing or not believing correctly.
or I would say associating partners with him. So I think like
Well,
atheists in that terms.
that's the not believing correctly.
Yeah. So I think like atheists in a way are. I think the polytheists are worse off than atheists in this
You
world.
think so?
I think so.
Uh,
Absolutely. I think the associating someone, not believing someone would be like, okay, I mean, I don't believe in you, but I'm not associating anyone with you. Whereas
No.
someone actively associating another god with that's my understanding.
There is also like a lot of punishment for not believing in the hereafter. Like Islam points out that point, like, and emphasizes it a lot.
Yeah, the articles of faith, the hereafter, the unknown, Allah, the singularity of Allah, Muhammad
Yeah,
being the
right.
prophet. Like, these are the articles of faith in Islam.
Yeah, and like,
Did I miss
think
one?
there's one, like, there's even one verse in this surah where it's like, I think it was in this surah where it says, and we have prepared for those who don't believe in the hereafter hellfire.
Oh, yeah, which kind of sucks because you already don't believe in the hereafter.
Yeah, which is why you don't deserve to go to heaven. Like, you don't believe in
But
God.
he
Why do you think
prepared
that he
for
should
it,
praise you?
right, but we'll get to hell because we don't believe there is a hell.
Yeah. Hey, from all the people who are gonna go to hell, seems like hell is where the party's at.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, so my schedule is getting a little tight, and I'm trying to figure out when we're going to be able to do this again. Is everybody good for the 26th of July?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll set up for the 26th. Same time, 5 p.m. Greenwich time, which should be noon Eastern time, Central for me. Or 11 a.m. Central for me. All right, guys, thank you very much. As usually when we got all of you guys together, it's much better. I am enjoying the conversations and I am learning a lot. And this really is the best way to read the Quran. When I first looked at it, I thought, oh, this is a relatively small book.
Yeah.
It's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside.
Exactly.
That's one of its miracles.
Right.
All right. Well, I'm glad you guys are able to bring your perspectives and everything to enhance this. Because if I did what most people do, when they try to read the Quran, if like a Westerner will pick up and read the Quran, the fuck are you going to get out of that? So this really is the best way to do this, and I'm happy that you guys are helping me. We're going to go ahead and close it up. Everybody say whatever.
Well, I just wanted to say thank you again for hosting us and for like allowing this platform to discuss this, again, very important topic that needs to be brought up a lot and discussed a lot, because I think it's very under discussed. So thank you for like allowing us the platform and for inviting us for this.
Thank you much.
Yes, in the similar vein, I mean, there's a lot of things that people, even Muslims, don't know about Islam, and facilitating conversations like these just helps us understand even more, and call on our fellow Muslims so that how much of it is kept away from you. So this really helps. And secondly, I would really love to have a believer on the show as well. And I think like I've mentioned this to you in the past as well. And I know that your motivation as well is in the same place, especially given that there's a lot of apologists that have popped up on YouTube, etc. I would definitely want. I would like to know what it would take for them to be on the show, because it'll be a richer conversation, is what I feel.
Yeah, that's the depth that I was looking for. I mean, to have somebody on who still holds a believing perspective, I think would present very different presentations
Correct.
of arguments than what we're getting.
Yeah.
So
that's all I have. Yeah.
Very good. And thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and close it up. See you in 2-3 weeks.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good.